After taking a few months off to move into my brand new home, I'm ready to get back into the YouTube hot seat. And no, it didn't have anything to do with a YouTube hijackery, it was just a good old-fashioned move. Yep, I needed more space, needed a bigger game room, and so here we are. And I'll probably do a game room tour at some point in time, but for right now, I'm really excited to get back into reviewing games. But I do have a few boxes to unload. Wait a minute, I don't remember that box being there a minute ago. Ugh. You were waiting long, huh? Damn, I screwed up the line. Well, that's what you get when you cut your air circulation down to one box. Poorly rehearsed catchphrases. Anyways, what brings the famous Solid Snake down to my humble game room?
I need your help. We have to destroy Metal Gear 2.
Sounds like it's time for a review. Roll that intro. You know, this is a really good opportunity for me to reinvent my show. I'm in a new environment, why not give it a try? It could produce bigger and better things for the channel. So, Snake, will you help me out and be my test audience if I help you?
Colonel, this kid smells like Triscuits and American cheese. There's no way he's gonna put out a review in less than 5 minutes. Should we abort? Very well. Snake out. What's that? Yeah, sure. Whatever, kid.
Great! Alright, so before we get into the latest review, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the latest in PCM-CIA technology, the dongle cable. This bad boy allows you to connect to any PCM-CIA card slot, so that way you can...
Hold on. Are you doing an ad before you even do the review?
Well, yeah, I mean, the best way to get big is to advertise. You know, YouTube's algorithm.
You're talking about algorithms in a video game review. Do you even care about your audience? I'm sorry. This is gonna take a while.
The Metal Gear series started as a major hit for Konami with the MSX2 released in 1987, which was brought to life courtesy of now ex-Konami developer Hideo Kojima. But when it came time for the franchise to be brought to North American audiences, it arrived on the little gray box that could. The Nintendo Entertainment System. While it's long been considered an inferior game to the MSX2 version, Metal Gear on the NES was chock full of the same stealth action gameplay that would be further evolved with the MSX2 sequel, Metal Gear 2: Solid Snake, and of course probably the most famous example, Metal Gear Solid on the Sony PlayStation. With that game, the bar was set and the franchise would continue to deliver high-status sequels throughout the 2000s. However, not every entry was canon, with standouts like Metal Gear Ghost Babel being a return to the old-style gameplay. And yes, I know it's technically called Metal Gear Solid in the US, but Ghost Babel is its name in Japan, and you get some mad gamer cred for spitting those factoids. Anyway, that was a side story that received praise from critics and fans, but today's game is often considered the black sheep of the franchise. But I've never really heard fans follow up beyond quoting Kojima saying it wasn't good, something he later retracted on in interviews. Does it deserve the hatred it's received? Let's take a look at Snake's Revenge on the NES and find out. Konami released Snake's Revenge in 1990 as a sequel to the previous NES game Metal Gear. Though Kojima didn't work on this one, it did inspire him to create the sequel to the original MSX2 game, Metal Gear Solid Snake. Both MSX2 games made it to the Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence disc, if you're ever curious. Regarding Snake's Revenge, it stuck to the formula of the NES game, making some changes that takes the franchise out of its comfort zone. But honestly, I personally feel like these changes would later influence certain cinematic aspects of the series going forward, for better or worse. Taking on the role of Solid Snake once again, the sequel takes place 3 years after the events of the first Metal Gear on the NES. In that game, you take down Big Boss and take down a supercomputer, but not Metal Gear?
You would think that they would be smart enough to make Metal Gear the boss in the NES version.
Wait, why are you over there now?
Oh, well, I figure I gotta show off my games. I gotta let everybody know that I'm just like them, right? Everybody has their games on a bookshelf. I mean, everybody does it. I've been doing it for years.
Okay, but you don't have to do that, right?
No, I suppose not.
And why are you kneeling like you're doing a photo shoot for an 80s hip-hop group?
Because the new bookshelves I bought looked bigger on the website.
Solid Snake's group, Foxhound, finds out that a new Metal Gear is being worked on by a group of terrorists in the Middle East, and it's Solid Snake's job to lead a team comprised of 3 other people to take down Metal Gear. Or is it 2 people? Well, you'll see what I mean. After a brief explanation of the plot with an opening cutscene when beginning the game, Snake is seen in the jungle, with flares erupting on the first few screens to light the way as Operation 747 begins. As you make your way through the jungle, things will look fairly familiar. Much like the first Metal Gear, I found this first part of the game to have some of the weaker design flaws due to radar and spotlight hit detection. There's flying combat choppers that can spot Snake in a heartbeat, and while they're tough to hide from, eventually you figure out the appropriate times to move without being detected through trial and error, something the Metal Gear franchise has utilized since the beginning. It's always made me want to press on, despite making me feel defeated when I have to start over, but hey, that's video games. The spotlights were more infuriating. His head can also accidentally trigger them. This leads to several deaths and repeated attempts. I'm not one to turn down a challenge, but I personally would have preferred some sort of radar detector so blind spots weren't just guessed by the player. The spotlights, I have no wiggle room. I suppose I was just rushing or sucking or both.
Kinky.
Opening up the menu with the select button, you'll find 4 different menu choices to choose from. Weapons, equipment, transceiver, and of course return to go back to the game. Weapons are mapped to 2 different categories: hand-to-hand combat with either fists or a knife, or projectile and mine-based weapons. This can be anything from handguns to semi-automatics, grenades, claymore mines, shotguns, plastic explosives, remote-guided missiles, mines, and more. There's a ton of variety here, though I would recommend leaving the bullet-based weapons for the regular enemies and the heavy-duty methods of attack for the bosses. One of the biggest improvements brought to this game was the inclusion of the 2 melee attack options being available right away. You don't have to find the knife as it's there with you from the beginning. Next, we have equipment. This is comprised of keycards to access different rooms throughout the game, food rations for health refills, mine detectors, oxygen tanks, x-ray goggles, and more helpful tools and items to use on your adventure. Last, we have the transceiver. Here, Solid Snake can call up to 3 different people. There's the 2 characters who are joining the mission physically, ex-Navy infiltration expert John Turner, and explosive guru and ex-Marine Nick Meyer.
John Turner. Why does that name sound so familiar? Like Jonathan Turner, the teacher from Boy Meets World? Well, it does bear a striking resemblance to him in-game.
Wow. Hey, we're wasting time. Can you move on?
Sure, but first, a message from our sponsors.
Now's the perfect time to tell you about this game I definitely haven't been playing, but I'm gonna make it seem like it's my favorite game ever. It's called Raid Shattered Legions, and it's the perfect toilet bowl experience.
Let me get this straight. You're stopping the review so you can hawk crappy mobile games that you clearly haven't played? Can't you just stick to the review of Snake's Revenge?
Well, yeah, I mean, I told you before, I gotta take on sponsors if I want people to watch my content.
Or you could just finish the review and put the ads at the end. This is YouTube, not TV.
The third character is one who doesn't show up until late in the game. Jennifer, or Jennifer X as they refer to her in the manual. She's the supposed foxy member of the group.
Kinda hard to be foxy if you're barely in the game. At least Mei Ling was flirty. Come on, Konami, give me something to work with here.
Like, why mention that she's foxy on both the box and in the manual? What was the point?
Well, she is pretty foxy.
I guess, but not even her eventual in-game sprite and headshot match the box cover. Like, what? Jennifer eventually manifests into the game when a pilot tells Snake to contact her, but this is at least 65% into the game. We've already infiltrated the enemy base, boarded a weapon-holding ship and blew up the stockpile, supposedly also destroying Metal Gear, and advanced through a prison, a train, and a desert base, all before Jennifer pops onto your transceiver. Going back a bit after you destroy the contents of the ship, Operation 747 takes a turn for the worse when your informant advises you that there's a second Metal Gear that must be destroyed. destroyed. What follows is a series of twists and turns I won't get too far into, but it all fits the mold of the tactics stealth espionage the series is known for. While later entries in the game put a bigger focus on character development and plot twists, the ones in Snake's Revenge are marred by poor translation, especially when you finally meet Nick and he claims that Jennifer's a spy? No, this is completely wrong, as they should have said that Jennifer was caught as a spy working against the terrorists, which makes more sense as to why she's tied up at the end of the game. She's on your side. Controls work great and are very responsive here. The only time I had difficulty was when trying to lay flat on the ground in the side-scrolling sections. I would sometimes just kneel when I meant to lay down, and I think it has something to do with the distance between portions of the floor and the end of the screen. You have to be further away from things to lay flat, which makes sense. Using the B button for melee attacks and the A button for your main weapons, you'll spend a large majority of your time flipping between keycards that you collect to try and figure out which one is the right one so you can open doors. This can get a bit ridiculous towards the end of the game when you have to scroll through all 8 keycards. There's even a section that requires you to try to go through multiple doors using the correct cards, and you've got to memorize the numbers so you can get through. It's time consuming, but no different than any other game in the series. The only time it's really a pain is when you're being drained of health because of poison rooms and you're trying to blow up a barricade with multiple plastic explosives. This just encourages gamers to leave the room to avoid pain, and with no gas mask in the game, it's one of the major parts that I felt was poor planning on behalf of the developers. There's also a radar that can be used in random parts of the game, like when you're trying to find an escape route after blowing up the stockpiled weapons. Now that I think about it, I don't think I ever used this afterwards. It felt underused in the game, and I also didn't get the point of the battery meter for the transceiver. I guess they tried to make it more realistic by adding a cinematic style via gameplay by cutting off the transceiver in the desert base. But regardless, the transceiver is overwhelmingly improved over Metal Gear on the NES because of the simplification. Try to chat with these people whenever you'd like, but I honestly only tried them when I was completely stuck. I'm so glad I don't have to use that silly dial just to go back and forth, and that I can use something that was used in Metal Gear Solid, a shortcut method of just selecting who you want to talk to. More on this in a bit. Back on the main screen, the heads-up display has Snake's life bars, the type of hand-to-hand combat weapon, advanced weapon, and equipment that you've equipped in the menus, as well as the rank. This goes up a star after certain amounts of prisoners of war are rescued, or when you use truth gas on certain enemy soldiers stuck in rooms alone. They claim to not know anything. Pfft, yeah, okay. Then you use the truth serum on them, and, well, they still don't give you much. As rank goes up, Snake's health bar increases, and you can collect more items and weapons than the previous rank. Late in the game, you can get a backpack which allows you to stock way more than the maximum you had, with most weapons maxing up well above 50. I found that rank was easier to raise in this game than in Metal Gear, and overall I'd say progression is much easier to achieve, at least when it comes to the areas themselves. They're tough, but really fun to traverse. Bosses are another story. The first boss in the game is a group of soldiers which charge at you using a special pattern that's kind of tough to crack. Despite being given entirely too many styles of weapons to use, it feels like certain items were a huge waste during my playthrough. I'm looking right at you, Claymore. And while I died pretty frequently against the bosses, the checkpoints were much more user-friendly this time around. Checkpoints in Metal Gear were really hard to achieve. You'd have to advance really far in order to access one. But in Snake's Revenge, the developers improved this to make the game more forgiving, so dying didn't feel like such a backtrack. I found myself struggling with the desire to continue in the first game, but Snake's Revenge kept me close to the action and didn't punish me too hard for my mistakes. I feel like perhaps Metal Gear Solid took a cue from this, but I'm just speculating. I found the controls more responsive. Having the combat knife to start off made the game more approachable initially, as standard enemies only take a hit with the knife. But there was a tactic Snake could use to gain more ammo for his guns, increase rations, and other quantity-based equipment. By using punches on enemies instead of knife attacks, bad guys would leave behind items that would help Snake on his journey. This doesn't happen all the time though, so if you run out of rations or bullets, they could be farmed from enemies. Just leave the screen and come back and the baddies would respawn. Speaking of farming, if you enter a room and see rations, weapons, or things like flare guns, explosive, mines, etc., the game encourages this sort of behavior, which I didn't realize until I went back and played the first Metal Gear on the NES, since it can be done there as well. Unfortunately, they don't tell you that in-game, but I wasn't really expecting that level of detail, so I kind of found out by happy accident. This feels like farming for hearts a bit in Castlevania II Simon's Quest. Speaking of Simon's Quest, a lot of the people that you speak with, be it enemies soldiers, POWs you rescue, or even your teammates all tend to give information that can be a bit on the vague side. As stated earlier, random bouts of chatter from teammates when you hit a screen of importance is fine, just press the select button to pull it up, but they're not always clear. Okay, sometimes it's dead on, like when they tell you to jump off the train when it stops, but other moments don't make any sense, such as Nick telling you that blowing up rocks is the way to go when you in fact have to push them using the power armor, then blow up the wall next to it to advance. Thankfully, other equipment like boots for walking across nail-ridden floors, antidote to cure poison from darts, and night vision goggles to see infrared alarms are all here, as well as a ton of others. Most pieces of equipment are kind of self-explanatory, but I won't lie, having the manual really helped me identify what some of these actually do.
Hey everybody, Deathcore Mike Slays here, and I'm back again for another episode. On today's episode of the show, we're going to be talking about gaming and music, and I appreciate both of those things because I'm very multifaceted. So, we happen to have a special guest with us who's got 5 great hidden gems that he's going to share with you. So, let's start off with your first game, special guest. What's that game that I've never seen or heard or played before that you've got in your hand?
Mario Paint. You didn't know what Mario Paint was? Really? You know what Suicide Silence sounds like, but you can't figure out the game with the Super NES mouse?
Yeah, but it's okay because I mentioned hidden gems!
GameStack beat you to this joke years ago. If you're gonna copy somebody for clicks, just do what the algorithm chasers do.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I was just joking around. But anyways, make sure that you click on that bell. Definitely click the bell so that way you get notifications to let you know that you're subscribed to my channel. And make sure that you subscribe. If you've never subscribed, please make sure to click that button right there, that red button. Yeah, where that mouse clicker is, right there. Click that button. Also, I'm gonna need a small vial of your blood.
Wait, what in the hell is that?
Oh, the little hand notification to tell people to subscribe and click a bell and give a vial of blood? Oh, that's nothing. That's just something that you have to do as a YouTuber. If you don't do that, then nobody will click subscribe and nobody will watch your content and nobody will click the bell to get notifications that they have new videos to watch. It's a YouTube thing.
They're adults. They'll figure it out. They don't need a hand animation. Don't insult their intelligence.
Oh, okay, well, maybe I can insult their intelligence by starting up some good old-fashioned YouTube drama in the retro gaming community. You know, I heard that GamerX69 is a total simp for Sexy Morgan 12X. Yep, total simp. And I heard that 12 other YouTubers that are way more famous than me are covering the same news articles as me. Like, how dare they?
You know, the best way to have a YouTube channel focused on video games is to talk about video games, not random YouTubers.
What a concept! Let's try that.
I really love the graphics in Snake's Revenge, more so than I did on the original Metal Gear for the NES. There is a wide range of blues and reds, though the level layout does get a bit claustrophobic at times. Even though this is the case, things balance out, especially when you get to the side-scrolling sections of the game, which harken back to Konami's other side-scrolling military series, Russian Attack. I feel like this was a natural evolution of the series to influence the 3D games by getting closer to the character of Solid Snake. He can jump with the A button, attack with the knife, handgun, or use rations. Oxygen tanks can be collected in the game so Snake can travel through water without using up his health, and the game even has elevators and platforms that can be ridden to new sections of the areas. It's also worth noting that stages have seamless transitions between them. I felt like I was just playing one big adventure. This also allows more variety with the visuals, which is always a nice touch. Though why Snake looks more like a red-painted Arnold Schwarzenegger in the game is a bit of an odd choice compared to his leaner frame in later games. These sections require plenty of restarts, and you will get caught and die a lot, so these sections, while enjoyable, can be really frustrating.
Don't worry, I'm packing the muscle back on these days.
You sure that's muscle?
Snake's Revenge has a fantastic soundtrack, which does not get enough praise in the Metal Gear fandom. I think the original NES game and the MSX2 games pack more of a punch than these songs, but that classic Konami sound is in full force here, sounding a bit more rounded like the Ninja Turtles Konami titles. Here's a few tracks I really loved. Passwords are distributed to the player as an option if they don't want to continue, and I gotta say they did a great job of bringing me, for the most part, right back to where I left off, with everything that I previously had. There's some things that the game does to make you lose guards easier, such as entering an elevator shaft and then exiting back into the area you were in. Though you can be easily spotted, there's plenty of blind spots, and with enough practice, you can master avoiding guards. I also got better about spotting and avoiding pitfalls within a split second, and patterns were well pronounced here. I just wish the bosses had more flexibility to defeat them. Snake's Revenge isn't a bad game by any means. Is it difficult? Sure. Is the translation botched? Definitely. But it tried some unique things which I thought were overall improvements compared with the first NES game. Snake's Revenge seems destined to fill the perceived inferior sequel checkmark box that games like Zelda 2, Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, and Super Mario Bros. 2 were plagued with. But does that mean different is bad? Well, not in my eyes, and this really isn't that much different. Give Snake's Revenge a chance, and try something unique for a change. You may enjoy it, just don't take the plot too seriously.
I think Snake's Revenge is well worth checking out. And you know, I'm doing a little self-reflecting on this game, and this review. I've been trying to reinvent myself this whole episode, but honestly, when I think about it, I'm just me. I'm just putting out content that I enjoy, in hopes that other people do as well. If you're watching this, you've made it to pretty much the end of the review. And because of that, it kind of feels like it's a little more special than just a 5-minute info dump from Wikipedia or Metacritic. I tried to do something special with each review. And so if you're watching this, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for continuing to support this channel, watching till the end, watching all the extras, sticking with the channel, subscribing, even if you don't subscribe. Thank you.
Listen, being part of the YouTube gaming community, you can do two things. Follow trends, or just be yourself. Make videos because you want to make them. Make them fun. Don't talk to people about the inner workings of the system in your videos because they're not here for that. They just want someone they can relate to, a gamer just like them. YouTube might not be the battlefield that everyone's trying to fit into, but you need to be comfortable with yourself. Make videos that you want to watch. Make YouTube yours. Unless you're a female YouTuber, then you have to work 500 times harder than the guys do to get respect, all because of your genitalia. Nice job, internet. Oh, and your intro is too long. Unsubbed.
Yeah, well, you're a jerk. Who knew Solid Snake was such a big YouTube gaming critic?
Yeah. Listen, thanks for taking out Metal Gear for the second time. Oh, and don't forget to put your Patreon at the end, you e-beggar.
Thanks to all patrons, but especially the Morningstar tier, Whip tier, and higher. They are Super Chess, Trevin Adams, The Autistic Gamer 89, Derek Demitter, Nintendo, and Bryce. If you're interested in supporting the channel, feel free to do so on the Patreon. Just $1 down gets you really cool content from behind the scenes, and it helps support the future reviews of this channel. Want more, dude? You haven't played this game? Look no further. There's reviews that you can watch that I've selected that I think you'll like if you enjoyed this one, and they're right there on the page. Go ahead and click on the links and follow the videos. Otherwise, check out the playlist for something else you might like. As always, thanks for watching.